Today's podcast is sponsored by AMAC, the only conservative alternative to that other group. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Guys, today's going to be a great episode. It's me, it's you, it's about Mayorkas and his failed policy at the border. Oh, by the way, what about Biden's nuke guy? We're going to be talking about this. The guy in charge of nuclear waste, right? With all the makeup and the no hair situation, stealing luggage at the airport. By the way, if that would have been somebody that worked for Trump, because this guy's freaky, right? He's a freak. Let's just be honest. I'm not going to say it in plain niceties. And he steals luggage at the airport. Guess what? It would have been the cover of the New York Times. And the New York Times would have said, Trump asks, quote unquote, freaky sidekick to steal luggage. That's exactly what it would be. That would be the headline. I'm just throwing it out there because I'm telling you, that's exactly what happens in Washington, D.C. It's all about politics. So we'll dive deep into that. Oh, as well, do you guys ever watch The View? I don't watch The View. When I watch The View, I just see the little clips online. Although I do have a funny story about The View. I'll tell you all about that later, but way later. But anyways, I see those little clips online, and the ladies at The View, including the so-called Alyssa Farah, I've spoken with her before. She's actually she was very nice to me on the phone. Very nice to me. But they were like all talking about the Balenciaga. I don't know if you saw that issue with this horrific line of clothing that was using children for sexual exploitation, like their advertisements were, and they were trying to downplay it and calling it a right-wing kind of like conspiracy that, oh, we use the word groomer. Well, we're going to be talking about that as well. I think this is very, very important. So we're going to be talking about the court case right now, which is being argued in front of the Supreme Court today that has major ramifications. Ken Paxton is on this. I mean, he is a great attorney general here in the state of Texas. He really is. And he knows how to challenge these big guys, right? He's very much like Attorney General Mark Brnovich, who we've had on the show. They're both constantly fighting, but this is Ken Paxton's argument, and I really, really believe that he's gonna make a difference here. He's arguing in front of the Supreme Court the ramifications for border enforcement regarding our own national security. This is a critical issue and one that I want to share with all of you. I will also cover John Kirby, who I also worked with when I was at the Washington Times. Well, not with, but I had to deal with him all the time when I was at the Pentagon. And his pathetic, John, what is wrong with you? Response to the protests in China. So I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to stay put. Listen to this. It's going to be great. And I promise I'll try not to cuss. I promise. We're going to make this a G-rated episode with a lot of fun stuff going on in it. So, hey, everyone, please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. That is saracarter.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Please sign up for the email list so that you don't get shadow banned. That way I can stay in communication with you and read your emails on our podcast, which would be great. Also, please subscribe to my new documentary podcast, Dark Wars, The Border. You don't want to miss this. This is serious. This is Dark Wars, The Border. It has been getting rave reviews, and I know you'll all love it as well. Visit our website at Dark Wars Pod, DarkWarsPod.com for the latest information. We never sleep here at the Sara Carter Show. Neither do the producers. We are constantly working because we want to bring you the truth. And if that requires me flying to El Salvador, Mexico, wherever I need to go to get that truth, I will do it when and if I can. Absolutely, 100%. And we'll bring it to you in this border series because I believe only through educating ourselves and our nation can we make the right decisions when it comes to putting people in office. Folks, before we get to our story on the Border Patrol and as well as the situation that is happening right now with the courts and Attorney General Ken Paxton, I want to tell you about a company that I absolutely love, MyPillow. They sponsor this podcast, and I think they are brilliant. I love Mike Lindell. I love what they do. They have a 6-piece towel set, regularly $89.98. Now you can get it for only $39.98. You cannot beat that. $89.98 now for $39.98 at mypillow.com. mypillow.com/Carter. That's mypillow.com/Carter with the promo code Carter. That's CARTER. 60-day money back guarantee extended now. So if you buy those towel sets right now, up until December 25th, you will have a 60-day money back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2023. You cannot beat that. For a limited time, get the MyPillow 6-piece towel set regularly $89.98. Now for only $39.98 at mypillow.com/Carter with the promo code Carter. There you'll find deep discounts on all MyPillow products and get your 6-piece MyPillow towel set for only $39.98. Shop mypillow.com/Carter, promo code Carter. That's mypillow.com/Carter. So, just to give you guys a little surprise, I will be heading to Palm Beach to Mar-A-Lago after the show today. I am going to an event there. I'm very excited. The weather is absolutely beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, 81 degrees. But more so than that, I absolutely believe in the future of this country. And I was thinking about it today as I was on the drive with my husband early this morning. We were talking. We dropped off our daughter at school early so she could do her math tutoring with the other kids. They do like this early morning math tutoring thing, which I think is great. But as we left, we were talking about our country. We're talking about what's happening at the border. My friend Gary Brugman, he's actually at the border with Victor Avila, and he'll be there throughout the week. And he sent me some videos and some pictures. And right when they got there in the morning in Eagle Pass, right along the border, hundreds of people were pouring over the border, right? It was just wide open. There was maybe 2 Border Patrol agents. They had to call for more people to try to process all of these people into the United States. It was just complete chaos, as always, right? And then, of course, right now, which I had verified through some official sources, a lot of the people are being processed in Mexico, believe it or not. They're literally processing people in Mexico before bringing them into the United States. Well, before they cross into the United States, which is so weird. They're processing them there so they can fudge the numbers when they cross the border here. So they're actually giving them permission to come into the U.S., but they're doing it in Mexico, not the way President Trump would have done it, not through the long and arduous process of checking their national security and their backgrounds and all that other stuff. They're just doing the quick, get them in, count them up, let them go response. This way, they're not just crossing the border, they're counting them differently. This is how our government fudges numbers. This is how they try to trick you. This is what they're doing. They're just tricking us. They're tricksters. They don't care. They don't care what happens to our children. They don't care what happens to the children crossing the border. They don't care about what they are doing to you because they have gotten, as my dad from World War II used to say, too big for their own britches. They think that they are it. They are protecting their power. They are protecting their own finances. They are protecting what they believe is their jobs. They think they own Washington, D.C. And some of that is our fault. Some of that is our fault because we have not taken it upon ourselves, not the way we should have as the American people, to say, we own Washington, D.C. And guess what? We are your boss. And I keep reiterating that. But let me go back to Mar-a-Lago. President Trump was the only president that I recall, even Bush couldn't do this, that literally meant what he said. He said, I am going to shut down that border and I'm going to make Mexico pay for some of it. I'm going to make them pay. And he did. And he said, Title 42 is in effect. I don't want to see children being trafficked. I want that border shut down. It was hard to get to that point. It was not easy for him. But he did it. He said, I'm going to move. Guess what? I'm going to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Everybody told him, oh, Mr. President, you can't do that. Everyone says that. Bush said that. Everyone says that. But it's just for politicking. It's not real. We just say that. But then when it comes to it, we don't want like World War III starting in the middle of the Middle East. President Trump said, do you think I'm lying to the Americans? Is that what I'm going to do? I'm going to be called a liar? No, you're going to be a realist. No. We are moving it. We're moving it. And that's that. And there is not going to be any World War III. And in fact, he's the only president that didn't have a war ongoing. Right? So I was talking about President Trump to my husband. I was thinking about it. And I know there's a lot of Republicans out there. They're frustrated with him. I don't want his tweets anymore. He's so much trouble. He's going to be trouble. I get it. I get it. Sometimes you'd rather just go, I don't want to think about it. I remember people used to say that about the war, right? Oh, I'm so exhausted of the war. Nobody was in the war. They were here, but they were exhausted of hearing about it. I go, believe me, I'm exhausted of the war because I live it every single day, and I will for the rest of my life because my husband was blinded there. So sometimes this is not like a TV show. It's reality. And sometimes you need people in office that are actually going to do what they say they are going to do. People who owe nothing to anyone in particular, especially in Washington, D.C. I believe that President Trump, who already made that announcement, and this is not saying that Governor Ron DeSantis isn't the bomb governor in Florida, or that, right now, Governor Greg Abbott isn't amazing here in Texas, or that we don't have other great governors like in Virginia. What I am saying is that there is only one person that can really go in right now and clean up Washington, D.C. Think about it. He owes nothing to no one. He won't be able to run again after the next 4 years. Let's say he gets in 2024. He's got 4 years. Nobody can do anything to him. That's why they're so terrified of him. That's why everybody's like, on high gear. The people that hate him are really the people that are protecting themselves. That's what they're doing. They're protecting their jobs, their future. They're like, oh, crap. If that guy gets in, he is going to come after us like nobody's business because that's what they did to him. Maybe that's what we need. I am so sick of the media carrying around the torch for the leftists and for the establishment. I'm so sick of it. It makes my stomach turn. They think we're all a bunch of idiots, right? That we're just going to buy their BS, their gaslighting, whatever it is they want to do to us. They just sit there and just stare at us. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes with Admiral John Kirby, at the Pentagon, and all of these people just lying in our faces and expecting us to just take it. We know what's going on. From China to Ukraine to the United States. And we know we got to clean up our house. So I'm going to Mar-A-Lago. I will fill you all in on my adventures there when I get back. And then I'll also be in New York City on the Steve Hilton Show live this coming Sunday. I want to jump right into this story because I think it's so important. The Supreme Court is going to hear arguments in the case challenging Mayorkas' deportation memo. And I want you to listen to this because this is a big deal. This has to do with Ken Paxton and the fight that we've been having here and Jeff Landry of Louisiana. They both say that President Biden's Department of Homeland Security is ignoring laws, which they are. And I made it perfectly obvious. I told you Gary and Victor Avila, former ICE agent who was almost killed, shot up by the drug cartels in Mexico. We're down there watching people just pour across the border. Are ignoring laws passed by Congress that regulate the detention of illegal immigrants. This lawsuit claims, guys, that Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas acted unlawfully, which I believe he did, when he issued a memo that limited the authority of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, those are the ICE agents, to deport illegal immigrants. In September 2021, Mayorkas sent this memo to ICE and other relevant agencies, stating that there are more than 11 million undocumented. This, by the way, I'm going to call bullshit on the 11 million number. It's around 22 million at minimum in the United States. Total bullshit. They have been saying 11 million since I was covering I blew it. I just used a cuss word. Okay, sorry about that. But they have been doing this number and saying these numbers since I was covering the border in 2003. That's a lie. So right off the bat, I would catch them in that lie. More than 11 million undocumented or otherwise removable non-citizens in the United States. DHS does not have the resources to apprehend and seek removal of every one of these non-citizens. Lie. They're letting them in. So of course they don't want them to remove them. That's the memo. The memo is don't ever take anyone into custody. He directed the agencies to exercise our discretion, and Texas and Louisiana sued the administration and said compliance with the memo meant ICE was violating federal law because it refused to take custody of dangerous, criminal, illegal aliens. And they are 100% right. We have had Attorney General Ken Paxton on this show, and I think he is brilliant. And I believe that what he is doing, along with Jeff Landry, is necessary to put our government in check. We need to put our government in check because our federal government's most important duty is to protect our national security. That's what it is. The national security of our country is at stake right now. Not only do we have a humanitarian crisis, not only are we emboldening the drug cartels, but by doing that, we affect our national security. People are pouring across our border. We have by the end of this fiscal year, well over 1 million people of known gotaways. Those are people that they didn't even check, right? Those are people that didn't even get processed, even in the smallest amount in this country, blending into our society, hiding in the shadows. Whether they become victims of the darkness, and I call that the darkness. I mean, you can't live in the shadows and not become a victim. Or whether they are the victimizers, right? They're the criminals that are coming across our border. That is something that we really have to, who is going to pay the price, right? I just want you to think about this. All the parents and people, let's go down to the crime of drunk driving. And we've seen this over and over again. An illegal that was allowed into the country that has no paperwork or no insurance, no nothing, and has been allowed into our country, lives somewhere in the Midwest or East Coast or West Coast, gets drunk, right? Not an American citizen getting drunk. Yes, I know there's tons of Americans that get drunk. I'm not talking about this. My mom was an immigrant. I'm not saying immigrants are drunks. I'm just giving you an example because this has happened to so many people. And there is a drunk driver and he hits a car and kills a family inside the car or kills a child inside the car. And then we find out, oh, this is one of the folks that Biden let in and never even bothered to process. Can you imagine what's going through the minds of parents or people when that happens to them directly, when they're directly impacted by this? And that's on a small scale, folks. Now imagine that over these last years under the Biden administration, under this crazy chaos, not the shutdowns and the checks that President Trump had in place, which I believe were powerful. And the first time I was like, yes, the first time we have a president that's actually going to lock it down. He at least tried. He understood. He stood on his word, right? Now imagine, what do we do if there's a terrorist in this country? If there's a group, a cell, a sleeper cell that blows up a mall, does something like that? What are we going to do? Right? It's pretty frightening. That's pretty frightening. And who's going to be accountable? Do you think Biden will be accountable for that? Do you think he'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, my policy really sucked. That open border policy. Anyways, moving on. I got Texas agents right now uncovered 50 illegal immigrants hidden in a junkyard big rig, guys. 5 accused human smugglers were arrested. Thank you, Texas DPS. And thank you, Texas Department of Public Safety Criminal Investigations Division. You guys are amazing. You're out there doing your job, doing the job that our federal government should be doing. I want you to hear this. As CID special agents approached the trailer, several illegal immigrants absconded and 5 adult males were apprehended. That's according to my good friend, Lieutenant Chris Olivares. A search of the property resulted in the discovery of approximately 50 additional illegal immigrants hidden inside a Connex trailer and container. Can you imagine how hot it gets in there? How terrible that is. I mean, these are monsters that they bring people in, and we're helping them. We're part of the illegal immigration process. Literally, I don't even know how you would charge, the human smugglers. I guess in state of Texas you can, because at least we're trying to stop it. But how could the feds ever charge anybody if they're actually doing the smuggling too? Maybe a lawyer should take that on for the bad guys, right? Like, hey, why are you guys charging us? You're letting us in. You're not even trying to stop us. I would. If I was a defense attorney, I would definitely throw that in their face. Yeah. So the illegal immigrants, 35 males, 10 females, and 8 juveniles from Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador were referred to the U.S. Border Patrol, where I'm going to add this to the story, where I think they'll be automatically released. Security cameras captured one of the accused human smugglers in that incident smiling behind the wheel of the big rig at a Border Patrol checkpoint as he entered the U.S. from Mexico hours before the gruesome discovery. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. People should not be treated like cattle. People should not be treated like slaves. We should not have a policy that allows this humanitarian crisis. People are going to die. They have died, and they will continue to die. And children are dying. And it won't just be in the shadows, right? It's going to be far worse than this. This is unacceptable. All we're doing is emboldening cartels that have already empowered themselves to the point where they're working and operating as a shadow government in Mexico, in other places throughout Central America. And we will not have, mark my words, we will give up, we will cede our power, and we will lose our nation. That is what will happen. I pray that Ken Paxton's, lawsuit, taken all the way up to the Supreme Court, is successful. And Jeff Landry, I thank them for that. And I'll be back in a few minutes with John Kirby. Okay, folks, I just wanted you to listen to this because we're going to make so much fun of him right now. I want you to listen to Biden's spokesperson, Admiral John Kirby. Just take a listen to this about China, and I'm just going to set it up for you. Chinese people are standing up for freedom and liberty. They are doing so at the cost of their own lives. These are our brothers and sisters. Yes, they are our brothers and sisters in the fight for freedom and against an adversary that wants to destroy our nation. These are people that are standing up for us too, because they're standing up for the principles that we believe in or that we should believe in, right? We are a beacon of light around the world. We need to guide them. We need to support them. And this is what Admiral John Kirby had to say about it.
I'm wondering, what is the president's reaction when he hears protesters in China chant freedom or Xi Jinping step down?
The president's not going to speak for protesters around the world. They're speaking for themselves.
So there's no reaction?
These protesters are speaking for themselves. What we are doing is making it clear that we support the right of peaceful protest.
Okay, he is such an ass. He's so full of it. He's lying straight to you. Well, maybe he's not lying. He really doesn't care about the Chinese because basically this administration, I believe, is in the pocket of the Chinese government, right? Admiral Kirby doesn't react this way when it comes to Ukraine. What's the difference? China is our number one adversary. Do you understand what is happening in China and how we have given our power to the Chinese government? Not only are the Chinese behind the movement of counterfeit pills into the United States that killed over 107,000 Americans, the opioid crisis, and that's in 2021. I'd love to see the 2022 numbers once they're fully out. So they're helping the cartels kill American citizens. They're buying up our land. They're like putting their technology into our towers in Montana where all of our nuke sites are at. They're like spying on our bases here in the United States, and they have police stations here in the U.S. Do you not see what I'm saying? Do you not see that the Chinese already have their claws in the U.S. already? And I'm sorry, Biden is his little beach. A beach. I said a beach. It's a beach. It's a beach. And this is how quiet, we're not going to say anything about the Chinese. We don't want to upset China. China is very important to the U.S. Well, yeah, because guess what? They also manufacture the majority of our medication and everything else. Over 80% or 90% of our antibiotics in China. Do you guys remember when President Trump was working on bringing all the manufacturing jobs back to the United States, calling out the national security threat that China is? I mean, we were literally at the beck and call of the Chinese when they released, or it was released, or it escaped the lab, the Wuhan lab, COVID-19. We were basically at their mercy. Yeah, all the PPE equipment made in China. Our antibiotics made in China. Everything made in China. And now Admiral Kirby has the gall to act so nonchalant and uncaring about the people that are literally standing up to one of the most totalitarian, dangerous governments in the history of the world. One that we have empowered. They didn't do that in Ukraine. Think about it. In Ukraine, they're like, oh my goodness, we've got to supply everything we can to the Ukrainians to protect them against the Russians and the invasion. We got to give them weapons. We got to stand by their side. We're going to give them all your tax dollars. And I am not saying we shouldn't. I am not saying we shouldn't support our brothers and sisters in Ukraine against a tyrant like Vladimir Putin. But I'm saying, don't you see the difference? Don't you see the difference in how the response is? Right? Oh, this is a great story because the Biden admin is now scrambling to track, which means they're going to try to come up with some kind of whatever lie, to track $20 billion in Ukraine aid as House Republicans warn that there will be audits. And the Biden admin also reportedly inspected just 10% of the weapons going over to Ukraine between February and November. Think about that. They think we're idiots. They are gaslighting us, folks. You got to hold them accountable. And by the way, what was that stupid smirk on John Kirby's face? Every time, someone asks him a tough question, he acts like he's smelling poop. He's just like, I'm not going to answer this. Like persnickety. It's like, put your persnickety smirk back and answer my question. That's what I would have said if I was the reporter there. Put your persnickety smirk back and answer my question. And I would have followed it up with the Ukraine thing. The reporter did not, but I would have certainly done that. Let's go down to this clip because this is really good. This is The View. And I know some of you want to throw up right now. I said The View, and I know you're all just like, I don't know if I want to hear this. But you got to hear this because it just drives me bananas. And this is about Balenciaga, that I don't even know this designer. I guess I just don't have money to buy their clothes. But Balenciaga being criticized recently for its despicable sexualization of young children. And I want you to hear Alyssa Farah, and she's the only so-called Republican on The View, talk about and she's a so-called because she's now putting down the conservatives or anybody who stands up for children's rights. Like, listen to this.
What's going on here?
I found this ad campaign particularly distasteful in this moment. So there's growing anti-LGBTQ sentiment right now, and how it's being framed is as portraying, trans people as groomers. This is a term you'll hear on the far right. They're groomers. This is where you get the anti-drag queen stuff that we're seeing. So Balenciaga played right into their hands by having kids in a sexualized manner, carrying something that represents, sex acts. I think it was a really bad misstep at a moment where it's just kind of a dangerous time to even give credence to those kind of insane takes.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even show the picture because it's so distasteful. But what's also very distasteful is like Balenciaga lately, I mean, their stuff is just ugly. I mean, the bag that their little girl is holding is ugly. Do you remember when Kim K was dressed in Balenciaga for the Met Gala? Look at that. Oh, she looked like a bat or something. I mean, so they are.
Yeah, it's really gross. It was really, but the thing is do you notice how they downplay this? They downplay this. They try to say this plays in, and this was exactly the words, it plays into the hands of the far right. No, let me tell you this. What Balenciaga did was completely, and I agree with people, they were saying if there's something as demonic, creepy, horrifying, they had these little babies in these fake little baby dolls in the hands of this woman, and they were like dripping in red. They had S&M with the children. I mean, it was disgusting. You don't try to excuse Balenciaga, right? You don't excuse them. This is so gross. It's a luxury fashion brand. Who the hell cares? I don't care. I think they're disgusting. I think anybody who does anything to purchase anything from them is a joke. I think don't even bother. The only thing I ever agreed with the women on The View is that it does, like, their clothes look ridiculous. This is interesting. The backlash began when online scrutinizers noticed a page from the 2008 Supreme Court decision, United States versus Williams, in the backdrop for an ad showcasing a $3,000 purse. The ruling upheld the constitutionality of a child pornography conviction. The ad, which has since been removed from the company's website, was part of the fashion house's spring 2023 collaboration with activewear brand Adidas. Oh my gosh. I got to get rid of Adidas now. That's just going to make me so mad. First it was Nike, now it's Adidas. We're going to be left with nothing. We're going to have to make our own shoes at home. We're going to have to start like getting sewing machines and just sewing our own stuff, going back to the olden days. The ad campaign also drew backlash because it featured images of children holding plush bears, wearing fishnet tops and leather harnesses, surrounded by objects like flasks and chain necklaces. We are really doing some serious damage to our children. We have not only sexualized them to a point of like really damaging their self-worth, right? Because your self-worth should not be about sex. It should not be sexualized. And by the way, children have a right to be children. It is such a small portion of our human life. It's such a beautiful part of our life to be taken care of by parents who love you, to have people around the world. I mean, children are just beautiful, right? And we are just destroying them. It's like these adults are just, they're so evil. They are so jealous of goodness. They are so filled with hate that they are purposefully working to destroy the innocence of children. They truly are evil. I mean, it's like, I don't even understand it. I mean, I really don't even understand it. And talk about evil. I'm sorry, but when we come back after this break, I have got to talk to you about Mr. Non-binary Biden nuclear official charged with stealing women's luggage at the airport. The nuke guy is stealing luggage, and only a few news outlets out there are actually reporting it. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Who would I be if I don't wrap up this amazing podcast with a focus on Mr. or Mrs. Sam Brinton? What a great name for somebody who is non-binary, wants to be whether a man or a woman, floating in the middle, fluid gender. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. It's not scientific. Here is a guy who is in charge of a science agency, nuclear waste agency. And he doesn't even go by science. He's just like, I am whatever I am. It's like, I don't want that guy in charge of nuclear waste, right? I don't even want this guy in charge of anything. Like even my garden in the backyard, I just don't want him in charge of it. I just don't want him in charge of anything. Maybe he could, hang out at the mall, be a model for Balenciaga. There you go. That sounds like that would be a good thing for him. Anyways, I was reading the story and it just blew my mind, right? So Sam Brinton, he's the senior energy department official, right, in charge of our nuclear waste, was charged, you guys, with stealing a traveler's luggage, apparently Vera Bradley. Apparently it was worth like $2,300 plus. I don't buy it. I've looked up the Vera Bradley suitcases online. Nothing above 500, but I guess maybe what was inside the suitcase might have been worth a lot. But he basically walked into the Minneapolis airport in September, shortly before quietly taking a leave of absence from his job. And he stole this woman's luggage. And it wasn't like he thought it was his, right? I thought, well, maybe he thought that was his Vera Bradley luggage. Nope. It was according to a criminal complaint filed on October 26th in Minnesota State Court. It was obtained by Fox News Digital. Brinton had traveled from Washington, D.C. to MSP that day. That's in Minneapolis, St. Paul. After the suitcase's owner alerted police, officers reviewed a video surveillance of the carousel and they identified Brinton. You can see it. He wasn't dressed in his long dress and high heels, though. He tried to be gender fluid man-like that day, or whatever he wants to be. And he grabbed the luggage before removing its tag, identifying the owner. So he actually looked at the tag and removed it. The court filing stated law enforcement observed Brinton using the luggage during at least 2 other trips in Washington, D.C., September 18th and October 9th. He is a thief. I don't care if he likes to dress up like a woman. I don't have to feel bad about telling you this story. Every news agency should have had that blasted on the front of their paper. Why? Because it's a national security issue. We have a guy in charge of nuclear waste, in charge of nuclear secrets, stealing women's luggage and wearing a dress with red lip. He actually looks like a demon sometimes. He's stealing luggage. Why? He could get up to a 5-year sentence, $10,000 fine, or both. Do you want me to tell you something, how serious this is? I mean, it's crazy. It is kind of funny, to see him. He looks like the Joker or something. If you guys haven't looked him up, you need to look him up. You need to look up Sam Brinton. Obama put him in charge of our nuclear waste, and he is completely nuts. The guy is he's a freak. I'm sorry. And he's stealing luggage at an airport. And he's in charge of the nuclear waste. I'm sure he has a TS clearance, meaning he has a top secret clearance, meaning if this guy is stealing luggage and he owes money and something else is going on here, meaning he could have sold some of our own secrets at Department of Energy. Think about that. He has some serious problems. But God, guys, if this would have been President Trump's advisor, and it was anytime anybody who was friends with Trump, anybody close to Trump himself, they made up lies about our own president of the United States. I just want you to get this through your head. For those of you who are still on the fence about Trump, they literally made up lies. The media sold a bill of goods that harmed the national security of the United States, hurt our elections. They made up lies about a U.S. president that he was in the pocket of the Russians when it is 100% obvious. I played you guys the clip from John Kirby, right? I played you guys the clips. We've talked about Hunter Biden before. I've had Peter Schweitzer on this show. The Bidens pocketed millions, tens of millions of dollars. Their companies that they are associated with, 10% for the big guy, from Chinese Communist Party members connected to the Chinese Communist Party. Their companies literally connected to China. They lied about Trump, but they have been pocketing money by China. That is what our president is doing. And now we have a guy that he appointed to be in charge of our nuclear program. And I'm sure it was not for his qualifications at MIT. I'm sure he was a problem there too. It was because he was a transgender crossdresser. And the Democrats are always about virtue signaling. See, I'm friends with a transgender. I'm never going to play. Who cares? Who cares? It should be the qualifications that count. Not the color of anybody's skin, not where they come from, not if they're transgender, not if they're cisgender, not if they're an alien. I don't care. I don't care. Not if you belong to the lizard people from the planet Mars. I don't care. Just, are you qualified for the job? This person was obviously not qualified for the job. And now it's a big problem. You know, gosh, I really wanted to play you this clip from Saturday Night Live. I don't know, for those of you who remember Pat, do you guys remember Pat, androgynous Pat? It's Pat. And nobody knew whether Pat was a man or a woman. And it was always kind of funny. It was a funny skit. I'm sure that is just like so non-PC. But you can find it on YouTube. YouTube will literally shut down a website for talking about election integrity. But Pat's still up there. So you can find Pat. Look at Pat in the office or Pat at the drugstore. That one's really funny. Pat at the drugstore is great. You know, random acts of Pat. Look at Pat, the birthday party, Pat. All that stuff. Pat at the barbershop. I don't care if you feel offended by what I say. I don't care anymore. Because guess what? I know who I am. I'm not putting anybody down. I'm just saying we should put the best person for the job in there. And we got to stop allowing our government to gaslight us, to pretend like we're idiots, like we don't know what's going on. And folks, I'm going to tell you one thing that I truly believe as I head into my Mar-A-Lago adventure this week. It's about getting our country back on track. This is about doing what is right for our nation. Getting out of the craziness and protecting our children from those crazy groomers. Yes, I said it. Sorry, Alyssa Farah. There are just some things that are just real. There are groomers out there. There are people that do this. They sexualize children and they take children. On the cover of People magazine not too long ago was a young girl who was taken in the 90s by an adult man who kidnapped her for 4 days. He took her from her home. She was 13 years old. There are sick people in the world, and these companies that feed into that sickness, they should be shut down. It's unacceptable. And we as adults have a responsibility. Sorry, we do. We're no longer kids. We have a responsibility to protect our children and protect our nation. Please follow me on Truth at Sarah Carter Official. God bless you. God bless our great nation. And God bless the great state of Texas.